Hi, my name is Alex Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube, and today I'm with the magnificent Tom Jones again, a very experienced ESL consultant, and he brought a friend. Tom, tell us about Mayra.
Hi, how are you? My name is indeed Tom Jones, slightly embarrassingly, and I'm director at Brock Solutions Agency. I have brought a friend and, amazingly, a distant cousin. Many years ago, I was in Mexico for the MEX-TESOL conference, which is always a joy. And while I was there, I happened to check out a lot of other presenters, and by far my favorite was Mayra Crosthwayt, who I got chatting to, and turned out she was Mexican with Colombian family, and her grandfather is British and from the same village that my family's from. So we've decided that we're cousins, which is nice and a good kinship. We subsequently worked together kind of all around South America, and she came and did some work in the UK as well. So I thought she'd be a great person for us to talk to, because she's got so much to share in terms of wisdom, ideas, and general good times.
Wait a minute though, Tom. You didn't even mention the fact that she's also been teaching online for the last year and a half.
Oh no,
being a massive window to what a lot of people that might be actually experiencing transitioning from physical to online actually going through. So this is the main reason we wanted Mayra here. It's not because she actually is a cousin, because she does appear with Tom Jones as her name. I noticed that, by the way. Her name is actually Mayra. And we're really excited about hearing your story, Mayra. And actually, I wonder if we jump to that. Other than just being actually, Tom, talk a little bit more about Mayra, because I don't think we're hearing the full story of Mayra.
Well, the thing with Mayra,
than your cousin.
She's got a great story. It's a really good story, and she's a trained masquerera. She's got a whole kind of musical history, but her teaching history is a really interesting one, because she started teaching English, which obviously she had as a mother tongue.
Yeah.
She started teaching English from the perspective of kind of, you know, a job that she was interested in. She then ran a school. She then was a consultant and a teacher trainer, and went all over the world doing that, which I think is really exciting. But that then made it much more exciting when she started online teaching. And I think the online teaching bit really caught me, because, we all changed.
We're just casually talking to a global consultant / leader in English education who's done teacher training, run a school before, and is also an English teacher by trade.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. All right. So Mayra, how did you start this? Because we are, from my understanding, you started teaching online a year and a half ago. And you've obviously learned a ton during that time. And why I'm really fascinated is that the world has been forced to teach online in a big hurry. And actually, they're only in month 6, and you're in month 18. And so it's fascinating what you might tell, these people that are listening in, because they might be actually like, wow, okay, this is maybe how comfortable and confident, or how much wiser I might feel actually if I just give this a bit more time. So I'm quite fascinated by this. Tell me, how did you get into this position where you're teaching online?
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for such a lovely introduction and telling my story. Okay, so part of that story is that a year and a half ago, I sadly had an accident, I can tell you, and I couldn't walk for 4 months. I was in recovery. So I found myself in this situation where I couldn't do my job, which was mostly traveling around Mexico training teachers. So in a similar way to the whole pandemic situation, I was forced to change all my teaching routine. So I decided to go back to the online classes. I decided to go back to teaching so that I could do it from my bed, basically, where I was recovering. And this is how I started a year and a half ago. Now, if I could go back to my younger self a year and a half ago, I would tell her to be cool, because everything is going to be fine. And this is the first thing that I want to
write that down.
This is the first thing I want to tell everybody who's listening. Guys, it's going to be fine. Okay. I promise. It's not easy at the beginning. We gotta walk through it. We gotta be resilient. But now it's after a rough period. I gotta tell you now that I really enjoy it. I enjoy being at home. I love my students. Even I've never met some of them, because some of them live in the United States. Some of them live in Tijuana. Some of them live in Chile, Peru, and nonetheless, I have successful relationships with my students, and I love them very much. So.
Wow. So that's like the outcome, right? Like, so look, 18 months on, you guys are going to be fine. And actually, this is kind of one of the key kind of bases of this conversation today was, what did that feel like, particularly during that first 30 days? Because again, a lot of the people listening in here will be feeling exactly the same, and they'll really resonate with that. So tell me, what did that feel like, and what did you learn in the first month?
Okay, the first month was just horrible. I gotta be honest. I was stressed, I was worried, and I felt, this was actually very strong because I for the first time in a very long time, I started feeling a bit useless because I thought maybe that's a bit of a strong word, but this is honestly how I felt. Because listen, I had been a teacher trainer for a very long time, and suddenly I found myself needing training and help. So I realized that that's the first thing I had to look for, help, right? So apart from trying to find the people who were teaching online, who weren't many at the time, by the way, I try to call friends and say, hey, have you done online teaching? And they're like, yeah, but not a lot, so I don't really know how to help you. So the first thing I did was to look for help, because that's the first thing that you have to do. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I had to stay in bed, that this was my new life right now, and that I had to be resilient, and I had to somehow have a source of income in that case, in my particular case. So the first thing was to seek for help. The first thing that I had to do was realize that even though I had been the one helping people for a very long time, now I needed to help, and I needed to become a student again.
And where did you go?
Sorry?
And tell me, where did you go? Where did you go for that help?
I went to Google, I went to YouTube, I went to videos, I went everywhere I could go.
Yeah.
But more specifically Google, I started using the online tools. Mostly
Google Suite, that is, or like Google
Google
Docs,
Suite.
Google.
No, the Google Classroom to assign homework, the Google Suite. Fortunately, Google gives you training on this, so it's really, really easy.
Excellent.
And I started using Google Docs to have online interaction, to give my students the opportunity to be mentally and physically active in the classroom, even with their hands. It's important that they are active. So for example, I started uploading graphic organizers to the Google Suite to help my students organize their thoughts, their ideas, their vocabulary, their notes. So it was like kind of like a twofold strategy, because they had to take notes on the screen with me, doing real-time correction, which helped my students a great deal. They actually enjoy looking at these corrections and working on them real time. I also asked them to always keep a notebook. This is 1.0 technology that is very important to have near you, right? So this was my first realization, that that I didn't just want to have a Skype call, a conversation, that I had to somehow be dynamic. I used to be very dynamic when I was in my live sessions. So I was like, how can I be
exhausting?
Exhausting, yeah. So I went on the Google Docs, and if you're taking a class with me, I'll suddenly tell you to go to the Google Doc and write down ideas. Then I will send you to the notebook, right? Then I will send you to the textbook. Then I will bring you back to my flashcards, right? Where I have many things like, I don't know, you can see, adjective. I bring their attention back to the flashcards. I take their attention to the video. So I realized that the way of keeping my students engaged, because of course I wanted them to recommend me and get me more students, which
by the way, this is critical. Like, if you satisfy your students, they're your best advocates, right? You didn't have to pay for that marketing, and those students come back with more people like themselves as well, particularly if you like them. That's brilliant.
Right, but that was one of the first questions in my head. How do I turn this into a dynamic experience, into an engaging experience? You know, being in the computer can be quite tiring for everybody. For the students, for us, I understand frustration, I understand exhaustion. Which is why the more active you keep it. For example, something that my students love is that sometimes they ask me a question, and I pull out my books and I say,
"Oh wow,
brilliant!"
And I remind them that books are still here to help us.
Yeah.
Right? And I say, so sometimes I encourage them to have a book with them.
Yeah.
To bring anything that they have in the house. So to have this props to, and I'm ready. And I had to learn this with time, basically by asking myself, how can I make this more dynamic for the students?
When we talked earlier, I really liked what you said about organising your time and organising their time and organising the syllabus. Talk us through that, because that was really golden.
Okay. Well, of course, I use my Google Calendar, no? And in the Google Calendar, you will schedule your classes, and that's it. But I started recording all of the contents of a class within the calendar, in the comments. You know that in the calendar you have a note section.
Yeah.
You have a note section, no? So it tells you, I have the name of the student, the date of the class. I keep it open, and in that section, I write down all the new vocabulary that comes out. I copy the links of whatever video or web page I used, or I write references to the book. I do use online books, textbooks, so I keep the page. And as I am recording my syllabus in real time, the next class, all I have to do is go back to the previous day. Open it, see what I taught, and then recover all that information. So it has helped me be really organized with the content, because at the beginning I didn't know where to keep track of websites, links, documents, and I was like, what do I do? So I started looking for, I don't know, complex learning management systems and free websites. And then one day I thought, isn't this what the calendar is for? To help you keep organized? Why am I looking out for all these things? So sometimes you don't have to look for the most complex online tools to become a good online teacher. My honest suggestion is keep it simple. Let's go back to the keep it simple technique. So with the calendar, I organize my schedule and I organize my syllabus, and I get to share the syllabus with the students, and I get to share everything we've done with the students. So they also keep track of that.
That makes a lot of sense to me. One of the things I have in my mind is, at the moment you might have a bunch of windows then in your screen. So if you're delivering it through, I don't know, Google Meet, maybe if you're using the Classroom suite, it sounded like you had the calendar open for your note taking, and you were often using the screen to deliver even physical props to kind of show things. So you have two screens, like or do you have just the one screen at the moment? No,
I work with an external monitor.
Great. I actually think that's a big tip as well. Like, when did you buy the external monitor immediately? Because you were in bed, like literally bed bound.
I realized that it was difficult for me to, like, if I show the students the content, I would lose sight of the student. So this is when I thought of the external monitor, and I said, maybe if I can see the content in one monitor and the student in another monitor, because it's very, very important to keep track of reactions, to keep track of this. You are explaining something and the students, they're not very aware of it, but they show a lot of expression on camera, and you suddenly may look at all these faces where they go, and I always say, what's wrong? What's wrong? I immediately say, what's wrong? So the students, they know that my eyes are everywhere. Like, I learned this one. Yes, teacher. Yes, teacher. And I said, put your phone down. And they go like this, and they say, okay, yeah, I am. Because I have learned to interpret all these micro expressions and gestures in the students that help me keep track of that. So keeping two monitors is a worthwhile investment. At least in Mexico, they're not very expensive. Like, you can get one for $10. And so I do use my external monitor. And as for the screen, just let me tell you this one last thing. I keep my calendar open and I bookmark all my pages per student. Each student has a folder with their own bookmarks. So if I'm going to teach a class, all I have to do is go to that bookmark and then open the class.
And that's, so all of your classes are one-to-one, yeah? You don't do any
Yes.
group classes?
I had one, but
Yeah.
it was small. It was 4 students. For them, I use Zoom, because in Zoom you
Okay.
can have breakout rooms.
Yeah.
So I would use the breakout rooms with the Google Docs for them to give me evidence of what they did while they were on the breakout rooms.
Oh, brilliant.
So what I've heard is you've got particularly focusing on dynamic. And by the way, even just now, I can really feel your energy. I can tell why your students just love it. And if you're listening in here, I think this is a fantastic example of you don't have to be physically there to bring your energy and your enthusiasm through. And I think that that's a real misnomer. But then put it against its exact opposite. If you just sat there like this and reduced your voice and said, we're going to do these things, you know, people are going to just fall over, like to sleep, or like you're going to have to be pretty good at figuring out when they're looking at their phone, because they're going to look at their phone a lot. So you've really talked about being really dynamic. You've talked about how you're organizing notes and how you use bookmarks and even Google Calendar as ways that you find really helpful for simplifying your note taking. Is there one more thing that you'd like to give our audience and the people listening in here today about what you find really helpful and what you've learned 18 months on having started?
Okay, so what I have learned in terms of teaching methodology, and to make up for the lack of physical contact, is assessment. For me, the key word is formative assessment. Now, what does that look like in a classroom? I will always ask you things like, how do you feel with this content? What do we reflect from this particular exercise? How are you feeling right now? What is going through your mind? How are you experiencing this? If I don't know, for example, if I do a listening or a video, I always ask them, how is the experience in terms of audio, in terms of visualization? I try to take care of how they are experiencing all the elements in the screen. I get a lot of feedback from that. And I try to get a lot of feedback on feelings, on emotions, on reactions, because the only way we can do it is through a more overt verbal communication. Actually, this is the time where we need to connect the most with our students on an emotional level. This is how you make up for that lack of physical contact.
That's a really important point.
So I do that, and for example, something that I do is that I even call them like small names, like I use terms of endearment that they love. It makes them feel special when they are in front of the camera. So I am always monitoring feelings, thoughts, ideas, and I have them do self-assessment on a continuous basis. I usually close the class with a reflection on what happened today, what did we do, what was difficult, how did we make it through? And then in this openness that you have with the student, I also share myself, and I also tell them things that sometimes I forget or don't know, or when I say, wait a minute, because I don't know everything. And there have been times where I've told my student, listen, we're gonna learn this together, okay? So could you please open a Google window, and I will do the same. And let's see if we can do this together. So I let go of the idea that I have to know it all, understand it all, and figure it out all. And when you do this with a very open heart, the students help you, and they actually enjoy helping you doing this. But the best tool for that, guys, is formative assessment. I would recommend everybody in the audience, if you're not familiar with this type of techniques, look for them, because they are solid gold when it comes to online teaching.
Can I just ask, when you say formative assessment, my understanding is that when I hear it, I would have thought that there might be an aspect of making sure they've really understood what has been taught, and you've kind of using these questions as ways of bringing that out. Is there do you find you have to be more, like, do you have to measure anything? Like, do you do formative assessment in terms of testing, or do you?
Formative assessment, the way I see it and in the way I use it, formative assessment is looking after 3 aspects. The student, of course, student's performance, teacher performance, and the materials. 4 things. and the teaching process. So you have to put all those 4 things under a magnifying glass where you can see what is happening. So some of the questions can be directed to the student. How do you feel? How are you understanding this idea? Then towards the materials. For example, I use a lot of authentic content, which I have to cure because, oh my God, there are so many mistakes online. Be careful with whatever people upload all the time. Make sure to revise everything. Make sure to check it before your class. I assess the content with the student. I say, what do you think about this particular piece of content? Is it too fast? If it's an audio, is it memorable? Is it something we want to talk about? Really? The students help me with this assessment. I also self-assess when I ask the student, was that a satisfying explanation? Is there any way I could have helped you better doing this?
Do you do anything in terms of like a formal assessment about seeing where their levels are, seeing the progress they've made, that sort of stuff? Or?
Projects. I do only projects. I decided to work only with projects and evidence of learning. So my students, they do a project once a month, and then I use a rubric for self-assessment because it's very important for me to, I don't want to tell them how they've gotten better. I want them to know it. And it's a very good moment when a student says, I notice and I know that I've really improved my vocabulary and my pronunciation, right? So of course I do, but it's usually through projects where they also have to show me their digital skills. I try to incorporate digital skills into that, like they have to do a web quest, or create a PowerPoint, or create a video if they're more advanced in creating a video. But I do that, and the students really enjoy it because there's a folder and there's a history, so they can look back on what they've done. And in the end, that tells more than an exam.
That's so true, isn't it? Because that body of work is something they can really point to and feel pride in. I think that's really great. I love that. Yeah.
This has been brilliant, Mayra. I really think we've learned a lot from you. I mean, again, if we could model your energy, I can tell you that all of us would be better teachers. At the second
better
thing,
people.
Yeah, and I love how you just keep things simple, particularly as you're starting out, just keeping it super simple. And then, as you mentioned, this formative assessment, not just about the student's progress, but I loved how you really were bringing in the fact that it's actually you're constantly looking at your own progress. How am I doing? And that actually helps articulate as well for the student, like, actually, I've got a great teacher. It's like constantly reaffirming, either I've got a great teacher. If you're not getting the feedback that you want with the genuine kind of energy you're expecting, maybe there's something else you've got to work on. So I really think that that's super helpful, and it builds a lot of trust and makes the student feel really welcomed and looked after. So thank you so much for your time, Mayra.
You are
Brilliant.
very, very welcome.
And Mayra, I'm sure some people would be very interested in either connecting with you, particularly, you've got this wonderful body of knowledge as a teacher trainer as well. Is there a way that they can find you?
Absolutely. I have a page on Facebook at the moment, which is called Eureka Language Club. Okay. So, but all you have to do, I think you have to type in at Eureka, Oaxaca, which is the city I live in Mexico. So Eureka, Oaxaca, and this is how you will find me on Facebook. I'm very happy to give out tips, tricks, moral support, anything that is necessary in this very tough times.
Fantastic. And thank you. And I know it's very, very, very much appreciated. And likewise, Tom, thank you for your time. And if you're wanting to learn about Tom,
rocksolutionsagency.com. Thank you, Mayra. That's really, honestly, an education, as it always is. So grateful for that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Okay.
See you now.
So thanks for listening in. And if you like something that's out of the box and has everything you might need to teach professionally online, check out www.learncube.com and sign up for one of our free trials for our professional virtual classroom.